Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we are going to be talking about the British miniseries that hit Netflix just recently, Adolescence. It's a 4-episode series. We're going to be talking about that in full spoilers. We've also got our On the Horizon segment and a pretty deep On Beat segment, which is our news segment. We've got some stuff from CinemaCon. We got some trailers. Some of the stuff is from this last week. Some of it goes a little bit further back because last week we just put our entire focus on Nintendo with the Switch 2. So we wanted to get back to some of these things. They weren't big enough for us to put them in last week's, but they're big enough to go in now that we've gotten through that part. Let's get started with our On the Horizon segment. On the Horizon. On the Horizon is where we talk about what's coming up in the next week or so, and we're going to start things off with Doctor Who, which is returning on Saturday, April 12th on Disney+. Then The Last of Us is returning for its second season on Sunday, April 13th on HBO and Max. Government Cheese, which is a surreal comedy set in 1969 following a newly released convict, is coming on Wednesday, April 16th to Apple TV+, which is the new place for, like, weird high-concept premise television. Sherlock and Daughter. This is a new Sherlock Holmes thing coming on Wednesday, April 16th, oddly enough to the CW. But David Thewlis is playing Sherlock, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Lunar Remastered Collection hits PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch on Friday, April 18th. And Sinners, the new movie from the director of Black Panther, is coming on Friday, April 18th in theaters. So yeah, that's what's coming up in the next week. And now we're going to move on to On Beats. On Beat. On Beat is our news segment. We've got, like I said, a lot of news stories, some trailers to go over. CinemaCon happened, so a lot of these came out of CinemaCon, some of them not, but a lot of them did. Made a busy week, just happened to kind of coincide with the Nintendo stuff too. So like I said, we kind of, anything that we deemed coverable from that time, we kind of just pushed off to this week so that we could focus on Nintendo last week. But now we're catching up. So starting off, Minecraft has had the biggest opening of 2025 so far. It is now, as you mentioned to me earlier, it is now the largest opening for a video game adaptation.
Yes.
It has made $336 million globally, $185.4 million domestic.
The kids
This is a great tragedy.
The kids love their Minecraft.
Unfortunately true.
No, it's not Mike. No, it's not Mike. The kids love Jack Black. Jack Black is just that much of a draw that kids are going to go to a movie about something they don't care about just to see Jack Black.
If only that was true. If only that was true, then I would have some respect for this, but unfortunately, I don't think that that's the case. I went to the movies the last 2 days, and I was like dodging little ankle biter children left and right. They were fucking everywhere, and it's not just because of Minecraft, it's also Snow White. And you could see them like groups of little girls going into Snow White and just hordes of boys that are just like running around and flailing their arms wildly and not paying attention to where they are or their surroundings in any way heading into Minecraft. So yeah, I don't envy the staff at these theaters. Even less so after like reports that have come out about the bad behavior from adult men attending the Minecraft movies. So
chicken jockey.
Yeah, there you go.
Ending it there.
A true tragedy to start things off with.
To be honest, like, I have no interest in the movie, but like, I've seen that scene. I just love Jack Black's line delivery for some reason. The way he says it But yeah.
Just a great tragedy to start things off with. Let's lighten it up with something good. Spider-Man 4 has got its official title. It's going to be called Spider-Man Brand New Day. They're dropping the home subtitle.
Yes. They're dropping the home, which, I mean, it's about time, in my opinion. I feel like the home was played out. I was going to groan if this was like home something again.
Do you think
It's
Spider-Man
like,
5 is
okay,
going to have day in the title? Like, this is Brand New Day. Spider-Man 5 will be called, like, Yet Another Day.
So it's interesting. This has connotations, because there is a Spider-Man run from 2008 that's titled Brand New Day, and it's basically, it's a sequel to One More Day, which is the absolute, like, all-time worst Spider-Man storyline of all time. Nobody likes One More Day. If this was called One More Day, then I'd be like, okay, no, throw it in the trash. It's garbage. But this is Brand New Day, which kinda, is, in the comics, it sets up a new status quo for Spider-Man, where, like, he's no longer involved with Mary Jane. And to this day, he's no longer involved with Mary Jane, because apparently that's verboten by Marvel editorial. Spider-Man, Peter Parker cannot be in a relationship with Mary Jane, according to Marvel editorial, which is stupid. But anyway.
That's like the whole, like, Nintendo can't say who's developing a game.
Basically,
it's that kind of stupid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's that kind of stupid. Yeah. Like, apparently part of like the Brand New Day was like everybody was made to like forget who Spider-Man was, even though, like,
that's No Way Home right there.
Yeah, after he unmasked himself during Civil War, everybody, like, magically forgets. People have vague memories that Spider-Man, like, unmasked himself and revealed his identity, but they can't, like, remember what he looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just stop worrying about it.
There you go. That's No Way Home. That happened No Way Home, so.
Yeah. That happened in No Way Home. So it's kind of like interesting that they named it that, because it suggests they're going to be taking elements from that storyline.
Mm-hmm. And this is being directed by Daniel Cretton, who did Shang-Chi, and he seems super excited about it. He actually shared a story at CinemaCon about how he's been developing this for the entire length of his son's life. His son was just born like a year ago or something. And so for the entire time his son's been alive, he's been developing this, and that his son's first word is apparently Spider-Man.
Yes.
That's a cute little story. And I like Daniel Cretton. I thought Shang-Chi, like I've said many times, was the best MCU movie from Phase 4.
Yeah.
And,
It's really solid. Like, Spider-Man's in good hands, in my opinion.
I'm excited to see what he's going to do with it. So that's cool. This next news story came out of CinemaCon as well. This is just crazy. They're making a Beatles movie coming out in April 2026. Well, scratch that. They're making 4 Beatles movies that are all coming out in April 2026 from director Sam Mendes. These are going to be intersecting movies. I don't know how related they are. Like, is this going to be a situation where these are all like alternate cuts of the same movie where they kind of focus from the perspective of different characters, but a lot of it's the same? Or is this like 4 completely different movies that follow these different life paths? Because if you're gonna do this with like a music biopic, like I think the Beatles is probably the only band that it makes sense for, because like every single Beatle has like an interesting story that's like separate from the others. I don't think that that's the case with any other band I can think of, where every single member of the band has like an interesting individual story that like people know. So this is just a really weird experiment, and I'm happy to see something like this just because, as I mentioned to you before the podcast, this is probably like the craziest cinematic experiment since the MCU.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's bonkers. I saw like a CinemaCon Sony executive said like this is like the first bingeable movie event. It's like, I don't know about you, I'm not sitting through 4 2-hour movies in one sitting. Like even if I really love the Beatles, like I don't think I would do that.
I know some Beatles fans that will do that. So I'm not a huge Beatles fan, so it wouldn't have that effect for me, but I know
I would sit through 4 MCU movies in one sitting.
Yeah, I think the only thing that would work with is probably Beatles. Like, Beatles fans, I think, would do that. Like, some Beatles fans would do that. Other Beatles fans would watch them more gradually over time, but there are a healthy number of Beatles fans that will do that. Totally will do that. Like, not even a doubt in my mind that they will do that. I'm thinking of some people that I know personally, very specifically, that I bet if I asked them, they would say, oh yeah, I'm doing that. So I'm not too terribly surprised that this is the one that they would do something with like this with. I'm just surprised that something like this is going to exist at all. It's a crazy experiment. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the whole Horizon thing. Do you remember the Horizon movie experiment that like failed because the first movie flopped so hard? That was the Kevin Costner Western thing, where they made like a trilogy of movies and they were going to release them like 1 month after the other. And I saw the first movie and I was like, this was just weird and nonsensical, and it tonally, like, nothing seemed to fit right. Like, nothing really worked with it. Some people seemed to love it. Most people seemed to not like it. It flopped really hard, and then they canceled all the other movies that were going to come out, because there were going to be 3 coming out like month after month. Like, it was like, first one in June, second one July, third one August. They were going to release them like that. And then they only ended up releasing the first one, and I think they're going to release the other ones like straight to stream.
It's crazy because, it's crazy to me because, like, if they're that close together in release calendar, like, they were clearly finished. Like, okay, it bombed, but, like, I don't know, you could make some of that money back by releasing the movie, surely. You already spent the money.
Well, it could be,
yeah.
It makes me think a little bit of like, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, for example. They filmed those back to back as if it was like one huge movie, but they released them a year apart. Like like one came out 1 year after. That's still a pretty short window.
That's still a short window.
Especially for something of that scale,
Right.
But they filmed them all back to back. So they were completely done filming all 3 of them before the first one came out.
Like the first one was like a smash hit. So like, yeah.
But like, so it kind of makes me think about that a little bit, but then like, it also makes me think of like that Horizon experiment a little bit, and that flopped really hard. Yeah, I think this will be more successful than the Horizon thing.
I think so too.
I think the Beatles alone is going to bring people. I think
there's more fans of the Beatles than there are like Kevin Costner cowboy epics.
The real interesting thing is going to be, are certain ones of this movie going to be much more successful than others? And is that going to make certain surviving members of the Beatles sad? Because I can't imagine that the John Lennon movie isn't the biggest one of the 4. So
Surprise.
It's like, is Ringo's movie going to come in 4th, and he's going to be like, oh.
No, Ringo's movie is going to be the best performing. It's going to shock you.
I can't imagine any movie but the John Lennon one being the biggest. Like, he's the figure, so.
Right, he's the figure, yeah.
But crazy. We'll see how that pans out in April of 2026. They didn't give specific dates. Some people are theorizing that these are going to come out on the same day based on the whole bingeable experience thing that was mentioned. But they didn't say that. They could come out like one a week, which would be a little bit make more sense, for releasing. Because then you could have like a big opening weekend each week with like a fall off that carries on after that. But man, you go to the movie theaters in April and there's going to be like one choice of the type of movie you're going to watch. So that's going to be kind of weird. I might have to cancel my subscription for that month because it's going to be the only thing playing in the theater. Our next news story is another kind of crazy one. So to set this up, we have to mention that Quentin Tarantino, he's done 9 movies, and he wants to end on his 10th movie. He's got this, like, whole thing about how he wants to end on his 10th, and that's when he's going to stop making movies, and he'll do other things, like he might write books, or he might do TV or something, but...
He'll produce, right?
Maybe,
He'll produce, he'll attach his name to things.
Yeah, I think he might do some stuff in TV, like a prestige, like, miniseries kind of thing, or something like that. Or he might, he did for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he wrote the novelization of the movie as a book. Himself. So you could see him doing some more stuff like that, I could even see him doing something like that with somebody else's movie, or like with old movies that never got novelizations that he loves or something. He's just that kind of guy. I could see him doing that. So that's kind of the setup for this. He was going to be, for his 10th movie, he was going to be making a movie that was codenamed or whatever, The Movie Critic. And it was going to be set in 1977. It was about a movie critic. We didn't really know anything beyond that, but that was going to be his 10th movie. He gave an update at some point saying it was no longer about a movie's critic, but it was still taking place in 1977. And then later we got an update saying, nah, he's not doing that. He's decided he doesn't want to do that as his 10th and final movie, so it's just gone. Like that disappeared. Well, now we found out that there is a movie coming from David Fincher based on a script by Tarantino that takes place in 1977 that follows the character character of Cliff Booth, which is Brad Pitt's character from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And yeah, it's looking like this is the 10th movie that he wrote, and it's now going to be being done by David Fincher with Brad Pitt still attached. And this is crazy on so many levels. For one, Tarantino hasn't really enjoyed the process of other people directing his scripts. I guess the one exception would be like From Dusk Till Dawn, which he wrote specifically for Robert Rodriguez. Like he wrote it for him, like kind of as a gift to him, like here's a movie for you.
Interesting, yeah.
But this is like a little different because this is something that he basically, it seems like he abandoned. And the only other time we can really think of where he's had like a script that he wrote and another high profile director did it was probably like Natural Born Killers or like True Romance. And both of those he was not happy with. He was very vocally unhappy with. So it's interesting that he's like, seems to be okay with this. But it's also interesting because this is David Fincher, who's just as high profile as Tarantino, I'd say.
Oh, yeah, obviously. Yes.
And another layer of interest to this is that it's taking a Brad Pitt character from an existing Tarantino movie, from Tarantino's 9th movie, and then Fincher's directing it, which will be the fourth time that Fincher's worked with Brad Pitt.
And apparently they're making this for Netflix, which is like another interesting, weird wrinkle to it.
Fincher's been doing a lot of stuff through Netflix. He did that.
Yes.
I think once he started off with Mindhunter, which was a series he did on Netflix. But then he recently did something with like Michael Fassbender about like a hitman that was good. I think it was called The Killer. That was on Netflix as well. So I think he's kind of like settled into doing stuff for streaming rather than, I think he just doesn't care about it being theatrical anymore. But it's fine because it's still doing good stuff. Like The Killer was still very good.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
But it's just kind of, this is just crazy on all levels. This is the kind of stuff that kind of pops up out of nowhere and you're like, what? What's going on here? Our next news story, Predator Badlands, the next Predator movie in development. It's been confirmed now that one of the heroes of the movie is going to be a Predator. No longer the antagonist. Does that mean there's going to be a second Predator that's like an antagonist? Or is this something else? Like, what is this? Like, everybody was kind of theorizing what they were going to do with Badlands after Prey. Because Prey took it in this different direction where they said, well, let's, instead of like kind of doing current era, like with Predator or Predator 2, let's like go back. Let's see like Predator versus Mayans. You know, let's see how that works. And everybody was like, okay, so what are you going to do for the next Predator? And everyone's pitching all these different kind of eras in history. A lot of people were like, oh, you got to do it with like, you know, samurais in Japan, you know, or you got to do it with like, Vikings in like the north and in like Norway and Sweden and stuff, like in that area, you know? And no, they're doing something where a Predator is going to be one of the heroes. I mean, maybe it's also one of those things. We don't know. We don't have any other details, but.
Yeah, we don't know. It's an interesting concept for sure.
Yeah. So that's just kind of like, okay, that's interesting. And we've got some more Predator stuff coming up when we get to trailers. But our next news story is that there's going to be an animated John Wick film that's about his impossible task. So remember in John Wick 2, they talked about in John Wick 1 too. They talked about how he accomplished this impossible task. And in John Wick 2, they said kind of how he accomplished that impossible task. And that's all kind of like in the lore of John Wick. It's all like background stuff. But they're going to be making an animated movie about that. So it's going to take place before the first John Wick movie. And Keanu Reeves is returning to voice the character. And Chad Stahelski is going to be involved as a producer. This is going to be directed by Shannon Tyndall, who is a animation director. I think this is his first time directing a project. He's done like, you know, other stuff in animation before for various films and stuff. And a script by Vanessa Taylor, who wrote The Shape of Water for Guillermo del Toro. So yeah, this is just kind of okay. And I know that Chad Stahelski said specifically that you can do anything with John Wick and you can do anything with animation. And so that's his implication, is that they can do things that are like crazier than they could in live action. Because all the John Wick movies just escalated movie after movie and like the kind of action that was in them. So now they're not hindered by actors anymore. They can just go all out because they're animating it. So this isn't like some animated spin-off thing that nobody's going to give a shit about. This is like something that's people involved in the franchise are deeply tied to. And then they also confirmed that there is going to be a John Wick 5 and that there's going to be a Kane-centered spin-off. Kane being a character from John Wick 4, played by Donnie Yen, who is kind of like a fan favorite character in that movie. And he's going to get his own spin-off, which will be the second spin-off John Wick with Ballerina coming out this year.
Yep, they're going to milk the hell out of this franchise, for sure.
Yep. not a bad franchise to be milked. It's still been good. So,
Yeah.
Ballerina looks good. All 4 John Wick movies were good. So I don't know. We'll see. Apparently the people heavily tied to John Wick really hated the Peacock series that they did, the Continental, that was a spin-off as well. But you and I seem to kind of think that was okay when we watched it. So
yeah.
Now let's get to trailers. So we got 6 trailers to go over this week. We're going to start things off. We got a new trailer for Karate Kid Legends. The initial trailer for Karate Kid Legends was really just kind of focused on Daniel. It came out like around the time like Cobra Kai was ending. And I think they just wanted to put the focus on like, okay, well, Cobra Kai ended. What's Daniel doing now? And so the trailer kind of seemed like it was all about him almost, and this trailer seems to be more about the actual movie. It puts more focus on the kid. It has more focus on Jackie Chan's character. Yeah.
You can get the basic structure of the plot from this movie, which is this kid is moving with his mother from China to New York. He's a student of Mr. Han. He's studying Kung Fu under Mr. Han in China, and he ends up going to New York. He's having issues. Mr. Han, follows him to New York. And Mr. Han seeks out Daniel LaRusso because he wants Daniel to teach him Miyagi-Do karate, And
there's some implications in the trailer that, they might be linked. Miyagi-Do karate and Mr. Han's form of Kung Fu might be, linked or something.
Yeah, it might be linked in some way. Yeah, exactly.
So,
and then there's this bit where, Mr. Han, he confronts Daniel and asks him to come to New York, and Daniel, turns him down, and he's like, I'll see you in New York. And he's like, no, you won't. And then next scene, it's Daniel showing up in New York.
See, I have kind of mixed feelings about this.
It looks good. It looks solid. It looks good.
I'm gonna watch it, but where I kind of come off of it is that this just looks completely removed from Cobra Kai, and that's just a little annoying to me.
To be fair, in the trailer, the way Ralph Macchio's performance and the way Daniel seems to be written doesn't seem to be too far removed from, Cobra Kai, so far.
I don't know, because Cobra Kai ended on an upbeat note, and this is starting with Daniel kind of in a dark place or something, it seems.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on because, we don't know the time gap, to be honest, that this is dealing with. So we don't know what's happening.
But I don't know. I just kind of, I wish that this had more involvement from the Cobra Kai guys.
Yeah.
It just kind of feels like they said, well, let's do a movie with these guys, and it's a movie. Movies are bigger than TV, so we don't need these guys.
Apparently, the directors did consult with the Cobra Kai guys, on the
I think
script.
they had a meeting or something.
Ralph Macchio's involved. He probably informed some of that, how this continues off of Cobra Kai with regards to his character.
I have a feeling there's going to be almost no mention of Cobra Kai.
No, there's not, because it's
any
a separate,
at all. Yeah.
No, there's not. It's a separate project. It's its own thing.
And it's just a little depressing. It kind of seems
fine.
like insulting the Cobra Kai to me.
It's not insulting.
It's that same TV shit. It's that same TV shit where
it's the TV shows
TV is inferior to movies. We don't need to reference the movies. We don't there's this kind of attitude, and I thought we'd kind of gotten past that with the era of prestige TV, and it just feels like that's back in this. That's the kind of thing
this is a movie. This is more sophisticated.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Your little Cobra Kai thing was cute, but this is the real thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I find it a little bit insulting, and I'm kind of feeling that from here. I mean, maybe that's just not the case at all, but I'm feeling that from what I've seen and heard about this movie. So like I said, I have mixed feelings. I'm still going to check it out, but I just have mixed feelings.
It looks pretty solid from the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it's interesting.
Next, we got a trailer for The Naked Gun, or more like a teaser for The Naked Gun. This is a remake or a new adaptation, I guess, new version. It's kind of did you ever watch the new version of Vacation that has the one guy from The Office in it?
No, never seen that.
It's pretty good actually, but it's they kind of soft rebooted Vacation, except that it's following Russ as a parent. That's kind of what they're doing with Naked Gun here, where it's kind of they're remaking Naked Gun, they're redoing it, they're rebooting it, but they're doing it in a way where it's it's actually the son of the character from the original movie.
It's a continuation, right?
So it's a soft reboot.
Yeah, it's a soft reboot.
So
it's fine.
We get an opening scene with Frank Drebin Jr. dressed as a little girl to solve a bank robbery. We also get a scene where it shows all the children of basically the characters from Naked Gun are like mourning their fathers. They're all like crying in front of photos of their individual fathers, and it shows, you know, Frank Drebin Jr. looking at Frank Drebin Sr. Then you see like his boss, and it's Stingray from Cobra Kai crying over his portrait.
Yeah.
And then it cuts and it shows the portrait of O.J. Simpson.
OJ's character, right, in the Naked Gun. And, like, his son is just like, he just, like, looks at the camera and is just like,
Yeah, like, no. So that's a funny bit. You and I mentioned before the podcast that the casting of Liam Neeson in this is like a meta joke itself.
It's inspired, yeah.
Yeah, it is a meta joke because people confuse Liam Neeson and Leslie Nielsen because of their names. Because their names are similar, yeah.
Their names are similar. There's so many layers to this casting too, because they got like very similar names, first of all. They just like sound like very much the same, like completely. They were both dramatic actors who kind of like gravitated to comedy later in their careers. I think in Liam Neeson's case, a lot of that has to do with Seth MacFarlane. Again, Seth MacFarlane is producing this, and Seth MacFarlane has like worked a lot with Liam Neeson in the past. Like Liam Neeson was in Ted 2. Liam Neeson was in Ted 2. He was in A Million Ways to Die in the West. He's the main antagonist in that.
Yeah.
So
he's
this
been
is
some other stuff too, like doing comedy, but it's been a more recent turn. Like he was in an episode of Atlanta where they were kind of parodying like his whole like controversial comments about, you know, going up and down a black neighborhood with a baseball bat or whatever.
Right, yeah.
And they kind of parodied that in Atlanta, like Donald Glover did that. And then,
there's this great scene in Life's Too Short.
Yeah.
With Warwick Davis, where he's doing this bit with Ricky Gervais and the other guy.
Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant. Yeah.
Stephen Merchant, yeah. Where he's like improving and he just wants to be a guy who has AIDS.
Yeah. He's got this like recent turn into it, and he's like this very like serious, straight-faced guy. This is also interesting because this is an entire genre that basically died.
Which the Zucker brothers, who did Airplane, who did The Naked Gun, Police Squad, you know, and stuff. They said, like, one of their things, the reason they casted Leslie Nielsen instead of, like, a comedian, instead of, like, somebody like Steve Martin or something, was because their specific style, like a spoof they were going to, they wanted, like, somebody people were used to taking seriously, saying these lines, doing this stuff completely straight-faced. Like, they were doing dramatic acting, but they were saying and doing ridiculous things, you know, like, that was the source of the comedy there. The equivalent would be like if they got Jim Carrey to do this, like you expect Jim Carrey to be wacky. You don't expect Liam Neeson to be wacky.
Yeah. So this is like I said, this is a genre that basically was killed off by all those scary movie spin-offs, like Epic movie and stuff like that.
Yeah, it just became like de-evolved into a series of like pop culture references.
Yeah, and then
like
long dance sequences and stuff. It was weird nonsense.
Yeah, just nonsense.
Yeah, and you know, we've actually enjoyed some stuff more recently that's covered it. We talked about like A Touch of Cloth on our old podcast, which was like a British kind of police spoof thing that kind of it was like, and for us that was like super refreshing.
It was another police spoof that was like in the same vein. Like really good. Had the one dude from Spartacus.
Yeah. I can't think of his name right now, but yeah, I know. Spartacus, and he was in the opening scene of season 1 of The Last of Us.
He was also in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes, but
I just can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Yeah, but he was great in it, and we talked about like how it's so sad that whole genre is just dead, you know, and now it's coming back because we got this, but we also have like a new scary movie being done by like the Wayans brothers again, with them back in charge of it instead of like just a studio head for some reason in charge of it. So like spoofs are coming back. This is cool. Hopefully they do well. Hopefully they turn out well. But Naked Gun is just a really interesting property because just there's so many levels to it. Like you said, there's just the casting. There's so many levels to it. There's so many levels to like spoofs being this kind of dead genre that's coming back. Like there's just a lot there. Next, we got a trailer for Tron Ares. So I've seen Tron. I haven't seen the new movie, the second one, the follow-up one. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that when it came out.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but I've seen the original Tron. I need to kind of get on the ball on that. One thing I gotta say about Tron Ares is that, man, that's got an aesthetic. Tron always kind of had this very specific aesthetic to it, but seeing all that Tron stuff in the real world is really bringing about these kind of like cyberpunk type vibes. It's really cool looking, and the biggest get of all is that Nine Inch Nails is doing the soundtrack. Once the soundtrack kicks in and you see the Nine Inch Nails logo and stuff, it's like, okay, this is going hard now. This looks really cool. What did you think of the Tron Ares trailer?
Yeah, it looks cool. It's interesting, right? The game is invading the real world.
Yeah, and to me, it's the aesthetic that's selling it. It's all that red. It's all that neon red that's like really selling it to me. The scene with like the bikes on the freeway with the police car getting cut in half was pretty cool. And then you see kind of like how like warfare would play out with those kind of the trails that are like solid and stuff from Tron and how that affects the real world. It's like, okay, this is kind of interesting. Yeah. And then, like I said, they got Nine Inch Nails, man. You can't do a much better get than that. I mean, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross have been doing music for movies for a while now, but this isn't labeled as music by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. This is listed as music by Nine Inch Nails. So you're hitting me right in my 90s feels.
Right. You ever think you like see a Disney movie where it ended with music by Nine Inch Nails?
No. Speaking of aesthetic, you want to talk about a director who has a very specific aesthetic. Our next trailer is for I believe it's pronounced the Phoenician Scheme. This is this next Wes Anderson movie. And boy, oh boy, does it look like a Wes Anderson movie. This is, Wes Anderson all over this Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah, this is like the most Wes Anderson movie I've ever seen. Like, I was watching it, I was kind of like...
Is this an SNL skit?
You've seen like those AI...
Yeah.
Like, yeah, those AI generated like, Wes Anderson Star Wars or whatever, where it's just like those images of people staring at the camera and stuff, like a Wes Anderson movie, and it's like, it's so ridiculous. Wes Anderson, like, trailers, like, are livelier than that. They're not so rote, and then this comes on, I'm like, okay, this looks just like those AI.
To me, it reminded me of, they did a skit on Saturday Night Live years ago that was like, it was Wes Anderson doing a horror film.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminded me of that, because they were really playing into like the kind of the Wes Anderson isms, you know, and how those are just kind of ridiculous and kind of their own thing, you know? But man, I mean, I'm not like a huge Wes Anderson fan. I've watched some of his stuff, but man, he's got like a very specific aesthetic, and I kind of like that. Even if I'm not going to watch his stuff, I kind of like that there's directors out there that have just a very distinct like aesthetic, where you could like see a frame from their movie and go, oh, this is this person's movie, you know? I used to be able to say that about Tim Burton, and then his career trajectory kind of changed and things got a little muddled, and, you know, it didn't look as distinct anymore, and the quality level kind of went down and stuff. You could make the argument about quality level with Wes Anderson's films as well over the years, but I like that some directors are keeping like a really strong aesthetic of their own, even if it does kind of come across like a Saturday Night Live sketch when you see this trailer.
Right? It looks like a parody of a Wes Anderson movie. But
yeah.
It's got a fantastic cast. It's happy to see Richard Ayoade in there.
Mm-hmm. Bryan Cranston shows up.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks. There's a lot of like, you know, I believe Scarlett Johansson was in it. She was in his last movie too, I think.
Yeah, she's a Wes Anderson like regular, isn't she?
I think she was just in the last one and this one.
Oh, okay.
Maybe she's been in more. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't think I saw it. Was Bill Murray in this?
I don't think so. No.
He's a Wes Anderson regular.
Yes, he is. Tom Hanks was in this for sure.
Yeah.
And of course, Michael Cera.
Yeah. And Benicio del Toro's like kind of the lead.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's the lead or if he's just like the central character.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But yeah, that's the Phoenician Scheme. And then we got trailer for Predator, Killer of Killers. This is like an animated, seems to be a anthology series, kind of like the Tales of the Jedi one that Disney Plus did, where it was all like different short films about Jedis or whatever that were animated. This seems to be like that for Predator. The animation all looks really good, really sharp. But yeah, it's showing all these different eras. You're seeing something that looked like World War II era. There was something that was definitely like samurais. We talked about before in the Predator Badlands news that everybody was kind of pitching like, oh, it should be Predator, but takes place in like a samurai era. Well, they got that in this. It's like they basically took all those ideas that people pitched for like, well, what could you do with Predator next? Well, how about putting him in this era? How about putting him in that era? And they said, okay, we'll just do all of those as like animated shorts.
Right. We'll do a series of vignettes.
Yeah.
How about that?
So what did you think of that? Does that look good to you?
That looks cool. I thought it looks fun.
I thought Prey was pretty fun. I think it was, a lot of people hyped it up like really big time. I thought it was just okay.
It was okay. It's not like the best, like, it's like, oh, like, I was like, alright, sure, it's better than like Aliens vs. Predator, but it's like...
Probably better than Predator 2.
I'm not gonna go that far. I like Predator 2 a lot. Like, I don't know. I really enjoyed it.
It's not up there with Predator 1.
No, nothing's up there with. That's the thing. Like, people, like, I saw people say, oh, this is like better than Predator 1. I'm like, you're insane. You're insane if you think this is better than Predator. Well, nothing has beaten Predator 1 yet.
Yeah. Have you ever watched Predator the musical? Like the YouTube video?
No.
Oh, you gotta watch that.
I gotta check it out.
They do like a whole song like, if it bleeds, you can kill it.
Oh, that's awesome.
I will show you the way.
I gotta pull that up after the podcast.
There's a whole series of those that the guys that did that did like a bunch of like old 80s movies as musicals. And they specifically did a bunch with like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. And they're great. Like, you need to watch it. You know, nice. Arnold Schwarzenegger, like they're doing an Arnold Schwarzenegger impression, but like singing. It's like great. It's just, chef's kiss. But yeah, Predator, Killer of Killers. I think it looks pretty good. I think I'm actually kind of more interested in that than I am in Prey, or was in Prey.
Yeah.
Just because I like all the different kind of time periods and kind of seeing like different types of predators.
The one with like the dog fighting is interesting. That's new because it's like, it's an aerial battle and the Predator's like in a spaceship, you know, like.
Yeah.
That is something different. So that's probably going to be like a really cool segment.
Mm-hmm. And then if this is going to be like kind of our segue to Badlands, which is going to have a predator as a hero, that's just going to...
Yeah, this is like this is the follow-up to Prey by Dan Trachtenberg. Apparently they're doing something where we don't have any plot details. We don't know like where this is set or like who else is involved, but apparently like they're saying this time the predator is the protagonist. So yeah. I'm like, okay, interesting. How does that
Trachtenberg's doing this too. Like he's producing this as well.
He's producing the animated, yeah, but this is like the next film follow-up to Prey.
Yeah, I'm just saying like it's kind of, so it kind of ties together is what I'm saying though. So it's like if Dan Trachtenberg's handling both, then there might be like details that kind of connect and kind of create like a Trachtenberg like Predator canon of sorts, you know?
Maybe.
Cool prospects. And then lastly, we got your favorite trailer of the week, Murderbot.
I'm surprised, like, I brought this up. You did seem, like, as enthusiastic about it as I was.
I think it looks good. Surprised. I do think it looks good. I've heard about the book. I've heard the book's really good. And I'm interested in seeing what they're going to do with the movie. I don't really know too terribly much about the book. I do think it looks good.
It looks, like, completely wacky. Like, basically, it's about, like, the security bot who, like, basically manages to override his programming so that he's no longer bound by, like, rules that he can't kill humans. And also, like, he's trying to, like, act natural. He's trying to, like, not let on that has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it seems like he seems like becoming more human as he tries to, like, navigate the charade.
He's, like, just absorbing culture.
He's absorbing,
I think that's a cool thing about it, is they showed him, like, watching this, like, it was kind of like Star Trek meets a soap opera.
Yeah.
With, like, was it John Cho in it, I think? And he's, like, watching these, like, things. So I like it. It's got that whole kind of, like, show within a show kind of thing going on with that, and probably some other things as well, which I've heard is kind of an aspect of the book of how he just kind of absorbs all this, like, pop culture of humanity. So it's going to be kind of cool to see this kind of like robotic perspective on like making fun of like human pop culture kind of thing, you know, as like aspect of the show. It looks good. It's, you know, Apple TV Plus, like I mentioned before, they're kind of like the new home for like
Apple TV Plus
avant-garde kind of like high concept TV.
Oh yeah. They're really like, hell yeah, apparently like Severance is like insane. I gotta start watching that.
I haven't watched anything on Apple TV Plus yet. I'm not a big fan of Apple as a company. I don't really want to subscribe to their service.
You're gonna have to get on it, man. They're delivering some killer stuff.
Yeah. I'm kind of building up a list of things that I'm gonna watch when I eventually subscribe to it. And I don't know, maybe I'll subscribe for Murderbot. The thing I told myself I was gonna subscribe for was the Vince Gilligan series.
Yeah, they're doing the Vince Gilligan series, which can't wait till that drops. I mean, I gotta give Apple credit. You know, like, I want it to be dismissive, but I mean, they're releasing like a lot of good stuff, like more than other streaming services. Like, Peacock or Paramount Plus, which like those services seem completely disposable at this point, let's be honest.
Yeah. Peacock's done some interesting stuff, actually. They did that Mrs. Davis thing with Damon Lindelof producing. That was like super high concept and weird.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
That was very weird. It's like a nun versus AI.
Trying not to get like off topic here. Murderbot stars of Skarsgård. Alexander Skarsgård this time is the Bill.
Yeah.
It's the Murderbot.
At this point, I'm surprised that Bill Skarsgård didn't pop up in the Nintendo Direct. We've been covering him so much.
Yeah, exactly. We've been covering him so much. Bill Skarsgård is the new playable character in Mario Kart World.
Yeah. Different costumes are all like these different, it's like Nosferatu is one of the costumes. And
is one of the costumes.
Boy is one of the costumes, you know? It's like all these different ones. It's like Pennywise. But man. But this is his big brother, Alexander Skarsgård from True Blood. He played Eric Northman, the Viking, who we last saw in a cameo in What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes, a really fun cameo for the last season of What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah, but yeah, I didn't mean to sound dismissive of Murderbot. Like we were just going over.
It just
like
we were going over. It just didn't sound like
we were debating which trailers we were going to keep, and I just wasn't arguing because you'd already said that you wanted to keep that, and I wasn't arguing against it.
You weren't arguing against it, yeah. Just it sounded like you shared like the same enthusiasm, but like you weren't arguing with me either. Like, so I was like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I think this is maybe my favorite trailer of the bunch. I also like the Naked Gun trailer, which you did not. I think the ending to that trailer was brilliant.
I feel like Naked Gun, I want to see more of that. Yeah. I want to see more.
And I thought the Tron Ares trailer was really good too.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the three that kind of interested me the most. And Tron Ares is like a weird one just because, like I said, I haven't seen the second movie, so I need to like kind of catch up on my lore for that. But I really dig the vibe.
You need to see like CGI DH Jeff Bridges.
Which probably looks really bad now because de-aging tech has gotten so much better. It's one of those things that probably looked amazing when you first saw it. Now it just looks like AI.
It looks like very Uncanny Valley.
Yeah. But that's it for our trailers. And now we're going to move on to our final segment, full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we're going to be talking about the British miniseries Adolescence. Adolescence was created by Stephen Graham, who also plays the father in the series, and Jack Thorne, who's another kind of common name in creative projects coming out of the UK. And it's interesting primarily, in my opinion, because every single episode is a single take. And that's happened a lot in movies or like scenes. You know, Daredevil's famous for those like long take, like hallway fights where it's like a 10-minute sequence or something. There have been movies going all the way back to like Alfred Hitchcock's The Rope that were done like as if it was a single take, but they're not really a single take. Like there's hidden cuts. I remember I watched a movie called Running Time with Bruce Campbell that did that as well. It was really good. 1917, that one war movie is like a pretty amazing achievement in doing that. But all of those things, they did all of them with multiple cuts, but they hid the cuts. Like a character would walk past and like a shadow would go over the lens, and then that's where a cut would be hidden, like because you couldn't tell. You know, it just, the character kept moving and it just looked like seamless, but there was a cut hidden there, or like a camera would whip in a direction and it would cut on that. They did not do that with this. This is like every single episode of this, each 1 hour episode of the series is a single take, and it gets downright complex at certain points. Like in the second episode, there's some really complex stuff. But before we even get into that, before we get into like what's interesting in the process of it, what did you think of this series just as a series, like ignoring that?
It was gripping. I can't believe it. Like I was going into this pretty much like not knowing what to expect. Mm-hmm. And I be honest, you know, it's not like really super hyped to watch it. I just thought, this is probably gonna be like some slow drama. Of course, it's hour-long episodes, probably gonna like drag along with like a bunch of melodrama. The way like it's shot and filmed, like I think the way doing it, like everything is like in real time, mm-hmm. right? The way like it follows these characters and the way like information is like revealed to you is like it's gripping. I ended up watching all 4 episodes in a single day.
Okay.
It's like I couldn't like get out of my head.
Yeah,
like,
I watched it one a day. My sister had come home last week, and I watched like one episode a day with her. But it's a very interesting series. A lot of it comes down to the way it was shot. A lot of it comes down to the performances, I think, are really, really strong, especially when you consider like the way this was filmed. It's like, man, imagine being the extra that flubs a line or something. Like you're in the 1 hour mark of the first episode and you flub a line and they're like, okay, reset.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That was probably like the one fault of the series is that thought was in the back of my head while I was watching it. I was just like, oh God, this is so stressful. I'm just thinking about the making of process and thinking like how stressful it must be. But yeah, like it's interesting because each episode kind of follows like a different context of this story. Like the basic story is that a murder happens and this kid murders another kid. At first you don't really know if that's what happened, and then it becomes very clear, like you see video of it and it's like, oh yeah.
It becomes kid. Like, yeah.
But they're still denying
it. In the first episode.
But nobody's coughing up to it, you know, like they're just still in denial about it, still trying to kind of play out of it. But then each episode kind of handles this different kind of aspect of it. Like the first episode is about the arrest.
Yeah.
They go in, they arrest the kid, they take him down to the police station, they book him. And it's like really, I think the episode's fascinating because it's about the process.
Yeah, it's about that initial process of arrest. Booking him in.
How you deal with like a minor in that situation?
Yeah, how you deal
he's like 13 years old or something?
Yeah, like his parents being involved and like processing him, getting him a lawyer, you know, like having the lawyer talk to them and, you know, and it all builds up to the last scene of the episode where they're in questioning with the father, the kid, and the lawyer, and that's when the police, like, reveal the evidence that they have, and the evidence is, like, pretty conclusive.
Yeah, they had him on video killing her.
Yes.
They got him on CCTV, which means, like, closed-circuit television, very common in the UK, like, they have cameras everywhere there. Yeah.
So, like, at the beginning of the first episode, you're kind of, like, wondering, oh, is he really guilty, like, of this? Possibly could it be to like the end to be like, no, 100% certain, okay? And that's when you realize this is not going to be a mystery series.
No, yeah. I think they refer to it, there's like a cute thing now where people are referring to their shows not as like a whodunit, but like they're using like a different question, but in that same kind of framework. I remember when they talked about Poker Face, they said, it's not a whodunit, it's a howdunit or something. And this is, same creators refer to it as a why-done-it.
Yeah, this isn't even like a how-done-it. This is a why-done-it. Because then the question becomes, why did he do this? And that's kind of like...
What are the circumstances that built to this event?
Yeah, what are the circumstances? That's more slowly, like, revealed to you, you know? But over the course of, like, episodes 2 and 3, really. By the end of episode 3, it becomes obvious that it's the manosphere and that whole, like, Andrew Tate stuff, which they directly, like, name drop Andrew Tate in the series, by the way.
Yeah. It's a scary thing. It's a real thing that's scary. And a lot of children getting involved in this and stuff, so all that kind of makes sense there. It's also had to do with bullying and stuff.
Basically, because this was...
manosphere stuff.
Because this was the murder of, like, this young boy. He murdered, like, a young girl, you know. He murdered a young girl that was in a school, and basically because of his own insecurities at being able to, like, attract women, you know, and she had mocked him or laughed at him, and that sent him into a rage.
Yeah, well, she bullied him. Like, they disclosed that, like, in the second episode, that the detective on the case, his son goes to the same school, and his son kind of pulled his father aside and said, you guys don't understand what these emojis mean and these text chains and stuff. You don't understand that he's being mocked, you know?
Yeah.
And that was kind of pointed out. Like I said, the first episode's all about the process.
Second episode is about investigation.
It's about the school. It's about the atmosphere that enabled
atmosphere. Yeah. Yeah. Because, like, the police officers from first episode go to the school to, like, do further investigation. They're looking for two things. They're looking for the murder weapon itself, which they don't have. And they're looking for a motive. Yeah. Which they also don't have.
Yeah. This is, I think, by far the weakest episode of the bunch.
Yeah. I agree.
There's some parts in it that just, there's parts that it's like, oh, this actor clearly made a mistake and they covered it up.
Yeah. Also, the scene where, like, the detective's son pulls him aside to explain, like, the emojis.
Felt a little unnatural, the way they spoke to each other and stuff,
It felt, well, yeah, I mean, it was obvious exposition for the sake of the audience, especially because, like, those characters don't show up again after episode 2. So, like, it's like, was this really about exploring their relationship, or was this about, like, explaining this to the audience so the audience, like, gets the context of, like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. happening.
Yeah,
Like,
I think you also had like a lot of like child actors, which was a problem.
Yeah. It was just a scene that stood out to me, like, not because it's like, egregious or anything, but because it was like, oh, the seams are showing a little bit here.
Yeah. It's interesting because the second episode is also, I'd say, by far the highest degree of difficulty.
Yes.
Of the ones. You know, there's
they're
a lot more landscape being covered. There's a lot more like, there's a big shot where like, it literally goes from handheld to a drone and back to handheld in a single take.
Yeah, because they're following, like, they're covering so much ground, you know, like, they're going, like, through this big school and everything where, like, episode 1, it's like a fairly small, like, police station. Episode 3 is contained entirely almost in one room, you know, like, very few. There's, like, a hallway and then a security guard's, like, office in the main room. There's not much happening.
Mm-hmm. Episode 4 takes place over a big space too, but it doesn't, traverses it in a more natural way.
It traverses it in a more natural way, yeah. It's like, the school is the most complex space in the entire series.
Yeah. And it's, like I said, there is a shot where it literally goes from handheld to a drone, back to handheld again in a single take. And it's like, just that alone is like ridiculously difficult. You know, there's other things like where the police officer follows a kid out a window. It's like that kind of stuff with like a single take is like insanely difficult, you know?
Yeah. And again, like, the killer and his family don't show up in episode 2. It's more
the father does at the end. He's at the very end.
Oh, yeah, he's at the very, very end.
He's visiting the vigil of the girl who's
at
killed.
The vigil. Yeah, he's the only one. It's the detectives and then, like, the kid's classmates and stuff, you know, the environment the kid was
Were
in.
fucking horrible, man.
Yeah, those kids are awful.
Like, none of the kids gave a shit that their classmate was murdered, except for the classmate's friend.
Yeah.
She was, like, beating up the one boy that was, like, making jokes and stuff. Like, as they were breaking it up, I was like, no, let her cook.
Who, you know, it was sad because, like, it was very clear, like, she had no personal friends at that school. Like, she was ostracized. Mm-hmm. And so, like, her only friend was this one girl who's, like, dead now.
Yeah.
And so that's the best episode, in my opinion, is episode 3. This is entirely, like, there's only 3 characters in this episode. There's the security guard, there's the boy who committed the murder, and then there's a psychologist. And the episode is about the psychologist evaluating him for the court, you know, and so it's all about, like, this like, intense, like, standoff between this boy killer and the psychologist. They're kind of having, like, this verbal war, almost.
Mm-hmm. She's trying to kind of get an understanding of him, and he's taking everything she's doing as, like, an opportunity to trick him.
Yeah.
And then he's kind of blowing up on her, and, like, all the kind of misogyny starts becoming, like, really crystal clear.
It becomes really, yeah, you get to see, like, the parts of this kid that you didn't see in the first episode, where he could be, like, really...
The mask is slipping.
He could be, like, really charming and lovable, you know, like, he could be easy to get along with. And then, like, as they go and he starts getting more agitated, the mask slips. He becomes, like, more angry and violent, prone to outbursts. And there's points where he gets up in her face and he tries to, like, intimidate her.
I like the way they
says, like, I can do anything I want to you.
I like the way they played it is he's not this, like, violent, scary, like, sociopath genius or something. He's this kid who is kind of manipulated by his circumstances into, like, this well of misogyny, like the manosphere, as we mentioned. And how, like, he'll do something really bad and then act like it's something that you can take back.
Yeah.
Or, like, he'll accidentally, like, he'll basically, in his rage, like, announce his crime and then be like, oh, I didn't actually say that. I didn't say that or something, you know, like he's still like this stupid kid. Like they're not playing him off as sociopathic genius or something.
Yeah, they're not like trying to they're not trying to portray him as like some criminal genius mastermind. He's just this kid who's been manipulated and he's also prone to like these emotional outbursts, you know, like he is a dangerous person to where like he has like this wellspring of like rage and anger, you know, that he lets out, bubbling under his surface, you know, and it's like it's this unchecked anger that's scary, that's horrifying to witness, you know, and it's interesting.
I think my favorite episode was the last episode.
Yeah.
The 4th episode. I just liked the effect on the family. I like that it focused on the family and that this is something that happened to them. And they don't garner any sympathy because everybody hates their son who did this. So they got this like no sympathy and it's just destroyed them. And it's just kind of going through like a day in their life basically and seeing like how much like self-doubt there is, how much like agony is going on in the family, like just how just utterly destroyed their lives are by this. And I think they did such a good job of like the family chemistry in this episode. Like you had that moment where they were in the car and they started kind of joking around and talking about old times and stuff. And it was like this brief reprieve. It's like they're sheltered by the structure of the car. And the second they get out, it's like they're back into reality. And I really like the way they did that. I think they did a really good job of like portraying that very naturally in like the same way that they didn't do in episode 2 with the scene with the detective and his son, where that felt very stilted. Like in episode 4, the scene with this family interacting felt very like genuine, very earnest.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, that episode is about basically them dealing with this. They're going on a little trip.
It just shows like more like the human cost of this.
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
like, yeah, this is the effect that this kid's actions have had on his own family. How do you deal with that? Like, if you're in that situation, right?
Yeah.
Like how do you cope?
How do you not blame yourself? How do you like thinking that this is like something you caused, and they played into that with the father. Like, is the father responsible? Is this the father's fault? Is he like this violent guy or something? They talk about how he lost his temper and like, tore down a shed or something and all these things.
Yeah, talk about episode 3. Yeah.
Yeah. That they try to play up as like, oh, so it's the father's fault. So, and it's like, no, it's not.
And yeah. And I'm glad like they don't like lean into it. They don't like, oh, this is obviously the result of like bad parenting, or like he has like a shitty father or shitty family. Cause that's the trope in popular media where like, oh yeah, like whenever like somebody's like a serial killer, oh, they have a shitty family.
If this was Law and Order Adolescence, that's how it would have been.
It's basically a meme. And I like that because like if they had done that, if they had portrayed the father as like this abusive person, abusive bad father, it would have diluted the messaging. Well, it would have diluted the whole messaging that this is the effect of the, the manosphere. Yeah. Right? It would have diluted that to a degree.
It also would have taken away the emotional impact, that gut punch of him crying on his son's bed at the end,
Yeah, exactly.
But he's not just like mourning what's happened to his family. He's not just like mourning that this girl died and stuff. He's mourning like he's basically like lost his son as well. In that sense, to him, it's like having a son die or something. It's similar in that kind of way. It's like you've lost this child, And like the impact of that is a really strong performance.
One criticism I have of this, I feel like and obviously it's deliberate. We don't see anything from like the victim's point of view. We don't see anything from the victim's family's point of view, or how the
closest we get to that is in episode 2 with her friend. That's like the closest we get to it.
That character is the only advocate in the series for the victim.
Yeah. I think it's kind of good that they didn't. Like, it is kind of like, it feels like something that's missing, but I think that that's not what the story's about. And I think if you had put that in there, if you'd like forced that in there, it would have felt forced in there.
Right.
So it's like, I agree with you. Like, it does feel like it's something that's missing, but when you actually really think about it, it's like, well, how would you squeeze that in? How would you work that into it? And I don't think it really could work in a way that isn't kind of cliche. I don't think there's a way they could have done that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
Yeah. But so, sounds like you really enjoyed it. I'm happy about that.
I really enjoyed it. It was really good, really excellently well acted.
Yeah.
And gripping from start to finish, and the way, like, it covers, like, all these aspects of it was just like, yeah, it's just very well done.
Yeah, there's some videos you can get on YouTube where it shows kind of like the filmmaking process of it, too. It's pretty interesting. They did some just really cool stuff. I mean, it's interesting that, like, I mentioned episode 2 being by far like the worst episode of the 4, like easily like way behind the others. And as far as like the actual quality of the episode, it had like all sorts of problems with like the way certain exposition came out, like you mentioned with the father and son conversation. There was like some bad performances. There's just a lot of problems in there, but it was also like by far the highest degree of difficulty on like a technical level. And it's interesting to kind of like watch those videos where they kind of show the process of making it. You just see how much went into it and how like technical it had to be. Like they had to line things up like so perfectly.
Oh yeah.
But that's it. That's Adolescence. That's a Netflix limited series, 4 episodes long. And as I said, each episode is a single cut, a single take. So that ends our podcast. But unfortunately, we have to briefly address our least favorite segment of the podcast, which is the RIP segment, because we lost an absolute legend last week.
Yeah, we
Val
did.
Kilmer.
Yeah. it's known for like all kinds of things, right? Like
the blow is only slightly softened by the fact that this was something we saw coming for a while.
Yeah.
He'd had all sorts of health issues. He had, I believe, throat cancer. And yeah, like this is something that we were anticipating happening with like Dread, and it finally came to pass. So Val Kilmer, very sad for him to go. Very quickly, like what is your Val Kilmer role? What is the role you think of when you see Val Kilmer?
Geez, I hate to be this person, but Batman Forever. He's like, yeah.
I'd say for me it was The Doors.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't see that movie.
I think I saw that movie when I was too young, and I think that's why that's a hard movie to watch when you're young.
I'd probably also say Tombstone, right?
Yeah, Tombstone's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, or MacGruber.
Yeah, MacGruber. Yeah. Yeah. Just a fantastic actor. It's a shame.
Yeah. Did you see the thing that Will Forte wrote about, where he said that the two of them lived together for like a small stretch of time? I don't remember the circumstances that he mentioned, but I think one of them was doing some projects. I think he might have been working on some project, and he was like, Val Kilmer let him basically stay at his house, and they got around to hanging out, and they were watching like The Amazing Race, and Val Kilmer was trying to convince him to go on The Amazing Race with them as like a celebrity group or something, where they would go on that reality show, and he wanted to do it too, and then basically both their agents were like, no, you can't do this. You can't do this. And he said it's like the biggest personal or the biggest like career regret of his life is that he didn't get to go have that experience,
Oh, yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah. But yeah, Val Kilmer, you will be missed. R.I.P.
Yep, R.I.P.
That is it for this week's podcast. Next week, we will be talking about Daredevil Born Again. I just started watching it. I just resubscribed to Disney Plus today. Got about, 3/4 of the way through the first episode, and then my mom came downstairs and started just like relentlessly talking and interrupting, and I just said, I gotta stop this and rewatch.
I watched like the newest episode just before we start the podcast.
Yeah, so. I gotta catch up on this, but I resubscribed. I started on episode 1. I gotta restart that one though. But yeah, we're gonna work our way through that, and we're gonna discuss that next week because the final episode comes out on, I believe on Tuesday. And we record on Wednesday. So we'll be like pretty fresh. The finale will be fresh in our minds, and we'll be doing that next week for the podcast. So stay tuned for that. Until then, thank you everybody for listening. You can follow me on Twitter. I am at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Foxel Hero. We use those same names on Blue Sky if you want to use that platform. You can also go to our website, thetotalscreen.com. If you go to our website and open up a container story for any of our podcast episodes and scroll down to the bottom paragraph, you'll find all of the links to our social accounts, our RSS feed, our YouTube channel where you can find the entire backlog of our podcast. You can also find access to our SoundCloud page. Everything's there, so get that there on our website, thetotalscreen.com. You can also subscribe to this podcast through your favorite podcast line of choice like Apple Podcasts or Pocket Cast. Thank you everybody for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.